Hi there, this is Brandon, the guy who knows very little Japanese, well, at least right now. So, I'm going to start the lessons. I think the very first starting point that we should all start with is probably Hiragana and Katakana. Once you learn that, I think you can kind of apply it to a lot of other stuff. That's been kind of what I've been picking up and seeing around. And I think it's better to just kind of learn the default building blocks of the language, the writing part, before we move on to the rest of it. So the two first things that you're going to want to learn, there are three things when it comes to learning to write in Japanese. You're going to want to know hiragana, katakana, and kanji. But kanji is the one of the Chinese characters, so there's thousands of those. We're not going to tackle that right away. That's eventually going to be a day-by-day process that we're going to have to work towards over a long period of time. But hiragana and katakana are the phonetic part of the language, which means that the characters basically correspond to sounds, and you build that, whereas kanji is more representative, kind of like pictographs. So each kanji is going to be one word, and that word doesn't necessarily have a specific pronunciation to it. There's going to be multiple different pronunciations to it. It's a little complicated, but we'll get into that later. So we're going to start with hiragana and katakana. Hiragana is the script that's used to write anything that is Japanese in origin. So any words that are inherently Japanese is going to be in hiragana. Katakana is what they use for borrowed words. Japanese language uses a lot of borrowed words, so they use katakana for that. So they're basically the same. There's kind of one set and the other set, and they have the same sounds in them, but one of them is used for any borrowed milk, like chocolate milk is like chocolate, so that would be like a word or something that's chocolate, and that would be in katakana. Whereas hiragana would be something like arigato. That would be hiragana, which is thank you. So, when doing hiragana, it's actually not that hard to do hiragana and katakana. You can probably pound it out in a day or two. It took me about 4 hours for hiragana, 5 hours for hiragana. But I have to freshen up on it. Like sometimes, I might miss something, but for the most part, I've got that kind of down pat, and that took me maybe about a day off. So it took me a few hours. But depending on how much time you have to invest into it, and how much time you have to, and how good your memory is, it might take you a little bit longer, which is no problem. You can take your time and learn it take as long as you want. So we're going to start with a site. Just give me a second here. We're going to start with this site, which is called Tofugu, and this is actually a great Japanese tool when it comes to learning Japanese. There's a lot of information on this website. It's completely awesome. I definitely recommend checking it out. But for now, we're just going to start with the hiragana charts, which the link is going to be in the description for every web page that I show you from here on out. So when looking at this web page, we're going to scroll down to the this word's a little weird to pronounce. Mnemonic, that's how you say it. I looked it up. Mnemonic-based hiragana charts. So we're going to use a method throughout the entire time that we learn Japanese. And so far, this has worked very well for me, albeit I'm not too far into the language. So, but so far I've tried a few different times, and trying this actually worked far better and far faster than any other time that I've tried it. So this is kind of what I'm going to go with out of the other methods that I've tried. Like brute forcing doesn't work quite as well. We're also going to brute force. We're going to kind of add the two together. But overall, this is a really great tool. So what it is, as you look down here, these are all the different hiragana, and you basically have a picture in your mind that represents what the hiragana is. Kind of like, you can even create a little bit of a story sometimes with the more complicated kanji later on. So if we click on this chart here, you can see that the character for A kind of represents the letter A, and there's a lot of other videos online that you can look up if you want also sound to be linked to it, where somebody reads them all out. I'm not going to read out every single character, but I'm just going to kind of show you this resource, and you can kind of go over it. Basically, yeah, so Ka looks like a kan dancer, so it looks like a little dancer. That'll help you remember it. Sa looks like the sign. Ta looks just like the letters TA, and just so on and so forth. None looks like a little none. That's na. And then you just kind of learn these, and they've got some more charts down here, and you just go through them. There's a lot of different mnemonics too. Not everybody uses the same one, so there's a bunch of different charts, and then you just kind of use the one that works for you. So not everybody has the same. There's also some stroke orders. Now, I haven't learned stroke orders yet, and I think it's kind of debated a little bit whether or not you should learn stroke orders right away or not. I kind of have a little bit of an intuitiveness to it, so I kind of can do most of them, but sometimes I make some mistakes. But for the most part, I plan on using Japanese on the computer and on cell phones, and I don't really plan on writing it by hand. I don't even write English or French, my second language, by hand at all. So when it comes to writing, that doesn't really concern me too much. I'm not super concerned about the stroke orders right away. I do want to learn them, but I'm kind of putting the time aside. So if you learn stroke orders, it might take a little bit longer, but it shouldn't take too much longer. Too much longer for those. Yeah, once you've looked at these charts and kind of have a bit of an idea of all the characters, and you think you're kind of comfortable a little bit, we're going to move over to the second link, which is a drag and drop practice quiz. So you can hammer this out for like 30 minutes as long as you feel comfortable, and you just kind of start putting them in there. So yeah, so this one right here, we're going to go that, and then you just kind of put them in, try to go, whatever pace you feel like. Where's our there. And you just keep going and looking at them. And I haven't done this in a little while, so I'm not super used to where they are. But eventually, the problem with this is that it doesn't really mix them up. So that's why I'm going to show you the next resource after. But drag and drop works really well for the first little while until eventually you get used to where they're placed. And you don't want that to become a thing. You want to remember the actual characters, right? So if you... here, we'll just put that one there. So if we move over to the next site, there's a lot of sites like this, but we're going to use flashcards. Flashcards are actually a great resource when also learning kanji and just learning anything in general, even science, physics, chem, whatever you want to learn. I would definitely recommend using flashcards, especially if they're interval-based flashcards based on how good you are at the flashcards. So there's this thing where basically every time you answer it wrong, it moves it up the queue so that you answer the ones you get wrong more often and the ones that you're more comfortable with less often. But that makes sure that you basically never forget anything, because over a period of time it's gonna reintroduce you to it, and if you forget it, you're gonna start all over from square one. So it makes it so that you get exposure to things you normally wouldn't get exposure to. So if there's characters that you're not going to see very often, this is definitely a great thing. And when I start with the kanji characters, I'm going to show an application I've been using for the first little bit to learn my first few characters, and that's been working great for me so far. And we'll just progress with that from now on. But that's going to be in the next video. But I have the link to an Hiragana flashcard. You just click learn, get started, got it, and it will show you them, and then you just kind of go through them. So this is that. Oh, I got that wrong, so it's gonna go and say that's the one, because remember, it was a sign. So it'll show you when you get it wrong, and then it'll put it back in so that you have to answer it again later. So if we keep going, we should eventually see it again, basically. It'll be a while, I think. I gotta go through the 7 that it shows me. And there we go. And then now we know, because we remember. And making mistakes, don't fret about making mistakes. The more you make mistakes, the more you learn, actually. So every time you make a mistake, this gives you an opportunity to reinforce in your mind the right answer. So never be upset about making a mistake. It's part of being human. We move forward, and we just keep on learning. And just doing this for a few hours, the drag and drop for a few hours, and first going over this and trying to do the mnemonics and getting the images in your brain, just doing those 3 things, you can learn this easily in a few hours if you really push yourself and you have a decent memory. Maybe a day or 2 at most if you're struggling a little bit, which is totally fine. Yeah. So the next thing we're going to move on to is Katakana, and I'm basically going to go over the same resources. I'm just going to also put those in the description. But one thing I would like to say is that this did take me a little bit longer, so I'm not completely fresh when it comes into learning Japanese. It's been maybe a little bit of time, maybe a month or so, that I've just kind of learned the basics. So I don't have a really in-depth knowledge or anything like that, but there's a few things I've kind of gone over. I've gone over Hiragana, Katakana, a few kanji, maybe like 100 or 200 or something like that kanji, and I've learned a few basic sentences. So I'm kind of like I would still consider myself in the beginner category of learning Japanese. But katakana, I did take a little bit longer. I actually started learning some kanji before I went back over and learned katakana completely. I skimmed over it in the beginning, but I didn't use it. I don't think you necessarily have to learn it right away. Like, I didn't learn it right away, but I would recommend learning it right away because honestly, when we start to approach kanji, we're going to approach it in a different way than I initially approached it that I think is better. We're going to learn a lot of the pronunciations and stuff first. I didn't do that. I just tried to memorize the meaning. It worked really well for me. So, maybe one way or the other, we don't know. We'll kind of go along and see which one works better. But I would recommend learning this. It's only another day or two, or a few hours if you got really good memory. It's the same thing as hiragana. You should do the same thing. So we're going to go to the first one, again, on this Tofugu site, which is an amazing site. We're going to look down, and we got the charts again. So if we go all the way down, it'll show you the letters, stroke orders, charts, and then we go back to mnemonics, and a lot of the mnemonics are actually very, very similar. They have, like, if you look at ka, it looks almost identical. Some of them are a little confusing here. I do find some of them kind of bizarre. I don't really know why they have, like, the same character mean a different thing when it's written different. It's bizarre. But you get used to it, and eventually you kind of get the hang of it. This one was a little bit harder. I did find katakana a little bit harder, but didn't take too much longer to get this down pat. This is probably, I'm still not fully comfortable with this. So, but for the most part, we're good. Then the next link here is going to be the drag and drop. Same thing, just go over it step by step. Just drag them, put them in there, repeat that a few times. And then again, the flashcards. And yeah, you just do the flashcards until you feel completely comfortable. And then we can move on to learning kanji. So I'm probably going to finish off this video here. This is just going to be a quick video about hiragana and katakana and how it's really not too hard to learn it. I just learned it myself. You just got to put in a few hours, do the mnemonics, memorize them, and then just brute force them, and you'll be comfortable in no time. Don't fret if you make any mistakes. It happens to the best of us. And yeah, it could happen. Yeah, everybody makes mistakes. You learn from them. So this is going to be me signing off. I'll see you in the next video.